Good afternoon. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustments virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being monitored by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connected either by their computer, a phone, or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Any registered participants will be participating by audio only. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The committee considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that applies to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with our decision, it may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Today, I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if required. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you're reaching the 5 minutes. When addressing the committee, please state your name and address and confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will present the application to the committee first. Please note the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. If the application is substantially revised, the committee may decide to defer it to ensure the revised application is accurate and all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals in support of or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all other speakers are finished, the applicant agent has an opportunity to rebut issues raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff for the items in this time slot? No. Okay. Are there any deferral requests, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, for the afternoon?
Through you, Mr. Chair, none that I know of.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are starting with number 2137 Armadale Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear deck and to maintain the existing parking condition. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from transportation, 9 form letters in support.
Chair, just a point of clarification. Notice on this one that there is a rear one-story addition as part of the, I don't know if it's part of the proposal, but it's certainly part of the site plan. It looks like it's as of right, so, but I didn't know whether it needed to be included in the description or whether because it's as of right, it's not included.
Sabrina?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay. Need
Okay,
not
thank
be
you.
included, Larry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. D'Oliveira?
D'Oliveira. Hello. Yes, my name is Mike D'Oliveira. I am the agent acting on behalf of 347 Armadale Avenue, and I'm with Replacement Design located at 911 Davenport Road.
Okay, seems to me we've heard from you before today.
Yes, you have.
Okay, so we have some opposition, so perhaps you could give us a brief presentation.
Certainly. So we are seeking relief to the bylaw to create a one-story rear addition. As I believe Larry had pointed out, there are no variances related to the addition itself. All the variances are related to the proposed deck at the back, and as you mentioned, the continuing of no parking on the lot. Our clients have spoken to many of the neighbors in the neighborhood, collecting, as mentioned, letters of support, but most importantly, we have letters in support from the neighbors on either side. There is another street on flanking, so some of the properties do kind of intersect here, but we do have the support from either side neighbor. Upon designing the addition, it was important to us and the homeowners that we try to keep in line with the bylaws as much as possible, which is why, as I mentioned, there are no variances for the main house. It really just comes down to the deck and parking. And the proposed deck is within the area, if you look at the existing site plan, as the existing hard concrete patio space. So we're not doing any major changes here to the landscaping back. There are no variances for landscaping. So it really is pretty minor in terms of the deck and parking. This property currently has no parking, and our plan is simply asking to continue with the existing condition. And our clients share this right of way with the neighbor who also does not use it currently. The laneway is just under 7 feet in width, so it makes it unusable for many vehicles as is. And there's also an existing fence at the rear of the property, so it clearly hasn't been used by either neighbor in a very long time as a vehicle parking access, nor do we even have space to park back there currently with the existing layout. I simply ask that if the committee is to deny us here today for whatever reason, that it's simply for the deck variances itself, and that we can move forward with the parking variances. That's truly the main reason we're here today, since the main house has no variances. Opening any questions you might have.
Yeah. Panel, any questions? Okay, we'll move on to Salma Hussein.
Hello.
Yes?
Yeah. So originally Joanna had my neighbor
Salma,
Joanna had
Miss
a plan to
Hussein,
make a change to
Miss Hussein, could we
Yes?
have your name and your address for the record, please?
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's Salma Hussein, and my address is 169 Colbeck Street.
Okay, tell us what your concerns are.
Okay. So my house, my back wall faces Joanna's the side of Armadale Avenue. So originally there was a plan to open some window, I guess, which would be facing onto my backyard. That I believe has been taken out, that request, so I don't have any issues.
So you're okay with the project as it is?
Yes, as it is, to just add a new addition, I have no problems.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we don't need to come back to you, Mr. Oliveira. Panel, any comments or a motion? Yes, Nimrod?
Yeah, I believe the variances are minor in nature, and so I would move approval of the variances with no conditions.
All right, seconder, Larry, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 22, 46 Golden Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a 1-story front addition and a new covered porch. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. And Mr. Westwood?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Yes, could we have your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Gary Westwood. I represent Roundabout Studio and am acting as agent for the owner of 46 Golden Avenue.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so there is some opposition. Could you just give us a brief presentation?
Okay. All right, so what this is, it's a fairly straightforward change that they want to make. Basically, we want to infill a portion of the front porch and expand the basement below to the depth of the porch. There are 3 letters of support for what it is that we're proposing to do. We've identified 10 examples on Golden Avenue and an adjoining street that show either a completely infilled or partially infilled front porch. Part of the reason for the size of the landscaping is because the existing house is very, very close to the lot line. It's just a very specific situation. And at this point, I'd be happy to entertain any questions that the committee may have.
Any questions, panel? No? Okay. So, Mr. Westwood, who is Jillian Ellis? She's marked as an agent as well.
Oh, Jillian Ellis is one of our employees. She was attending the hearing. We thought that she had to be invited, and that wasn't the case. So
Okay.
she's not. She shouldn't be listed there as a speaker.
Okay, thank you. Eva Birdsey?
Yes.
Yes. Could you give us your name and your address, please?
My name is Eva Birdsley. I live at 44 Golden Avenue.
Okay.
And I don't have any objections to their project. I just have concerns about the construction phase. During the construction, I don't want my access to my backyard
All
from
right,
the front.
Miss Birdsey, as a committee, we don't have any jurisdiction over the construction phase. That is something you should discuss with the applicant to try and get it minimized.
Okay.
All right, so no other concerns?
No.
All right, thank you very much. We don't need to get back to you, Mr. Westwood. Panel, do we have any comments or a motion? Yim?
Yes, I do have a motion. I think it's just rebuilding the front porch and extending the basement below it. I don't think it will create any new negative impact. And a very straightforward application. I move for approval with no conditions.
All right, seconder? Nimrod, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Next, number 23, 236 Russell Hill Road. Purpose of this application is to construct a new two-story detached dwelling. With this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant. We have reports from three reports from Urban Forestry. We have letters of support from 239 Russell Hill, 130 Queens Quay, 4 form letters in support from addresses on Russell Hill and Clarendon, and opposition from 226, 229, 248, and 230 Russell Hill, and 4 form letters in opposition from addresses on Russell Hill and 1 address on Clarendon. Mr. Bronskill?
Good afternoon, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to start, if I could, by deleting 2 variances for the panel, and then
Okay.
explain why we're deleting those variances, and then use the balance of my time on the remaining 2 variances, Mr. Chair, if that would be acceptable.
That's acceptable. Tell us which ones
Thank
you
you.
want to delete.
Yes, it's number 3 and number 4. Number 3 is the percentage of front yard being maintained as landscaping, and number 4 is the minimum in the form of soft landscaping. Our client is prepared to delete the request for both of those variances at this stage.
Okay?
And Mr. Chair, there are 2 reasons for that. We do have the memo or report from Urban Forestry, and our client's arborist, with thanks to staff, has been able to speak with them about their report. The original proposal had a part of the driveway coming out past a city street tree. Our client was proposing to relocate that tree. Urban Forestry has since indicated to us that that relocation is treated as a removal, and so and then therefore there's an impact from Urban Forestry's perspective on the front yard landscaping as a result of the driveway that is developed because that tree is relocated. Our client's appreciative of the discussions with staff and is prepared to work with them to maintain the tree in its existing location, and so therefore can delete those 2 variances. Our client also reviewed the letters of objection and noted that there were also concerns in those letters of objection from neighbors about the front yard landscaping, and in an effort to respond to those concerns is also deleting the variances, as a gesture for people in the neighborhood who expressed a concern about the reduction in both the landscaping and the soft landscaping. And so, Mr. Chair, that just leaves the length and depth variances, and I'll speak to them very quickly. I'm going to just touch on 2 things for the committee. One, we noticed in the objection letters that there appears to be a bit of confusion that this is being perceived as an after-the-fact request. I can advise you that the excavation in that area is required for foundation underneath the outdoor covered room, regardless of whether or not the excavation is subsequently filled in. What our client's now proposing to do is not fill in that excavated area. So that triggers then the length and depth variances. It's underground with the exception of a small 1-story portion or breakfast nook on the back of the building. But otherwise, the length and depth variance is a depth of 22.28 meters and a length variance of 21.98 meters. They're actually measured underground to the foundation wall under the outdoor covered room. I can say to this committee, in the event that you decline those variances, the only change to the design would be the small rectangle that is the 1-story room or breakfast nook that appears it's hatched on mine. I hope you can see it as hatched on yours. There, thank you to committee staff, right where the arrow is going, that the larger rectangle there is the piece that sticks out. So those would be the only portions that would be removed above grade. That's the only change. So there's no, it's not really that something's been constructed and we're seeking permission for it after the fact. It's that what our client now proposes to do is not fill in the area that has been excavated and use that below grade. It triggers the length and depth, but as you note on the notice, there's no FSI, there's no coverage, there's none of those associated variances that you would otherwise see. The second thing is, interestingly, even the one-story portion is not actually as long as the outline of the previous dwelling on the site, which in mine is in green. It's the long rectangular dashed line that extends further back almost to the edge of the outdoor covered porch. And we would note that the main wall of the house is in fact in line with the permitted length and depth other than the bump out, and is in fact shorter than both of the adjacent houses. So we truly think the length and depth in the end is minor. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I hope that also addresses some of the concerns if there are speakers.
So, Mr. Brunskill, apart from variance number 1 and 2, you are building at your client's building as of right?
Yes, sir, with the qualifier, and thanks again to staff, there is that little bump out. It's a rectangle. It's both a small 2-story above grade and then a 1-story above grade that are just extensions beyond. If I could beg the indulgence of staff, if they were able to go to page 4 of the materials that we provided with my thanks, there's a, I don't know if you can see, that's the one there from the back. Do you see on the 2nd story, there's a small bump out with a window next to the small balcony area? That technically extends beyond the 17 meters. And below that, you'll see the 1-story breakfast nook that technically extends beyond the 17 meters. But otherwise, the main wall of the house is in line with the as of right zoning. So it's that 2nd floor kind of windowed area and 1st floor breakfast nook area, both of which remain behind or not as long as the dwellings on either side.
Right, thank you. Yim?
Yeah, just one question. You have mentioned that you're working with urban forestry and decided not to remove those trees in front. So is that going to alter the driveway configuration?
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Chair. It may. We will work on a solution with them. I will just say 2 things. One, there is a permission on a lot of this size for what I call roundabout driveways, and obviously they do exist in the neighborhood. And you'll note before, we actually didn't need a variance for the actual layout of the driveway. It was for the resulting landscaping. So there may be a solution with a roundabout driveway. There is, I'll try not to get into too many details for you. There is a fire hydrant that is next to the street tree, and so we do have to figure out whether the driveway can be accommodated by maintaining the tree and potentially moving the fire hydrant. Another alternative would be a single entry driveway, maintain the landscaping in accordance with the bylaw, but enable a bit of a turnaround on site. The reason our client wants to explore either a circular driveway or a turnaround is, you'll know on this section of Russell Hill Road, very well traveled, but also a well-used bike lane. And so they want the ability to enter the site in a forward motion and leave the site in a forward motion. But we will have to have some discussions with a few departments, urban forestry, whoever handles fire hydrant relocations. There is a process for that I now know about. And then also transportation, just in terms of the curb cuts. But there right now, there wouldn't be any variances for that. And we're hopeful that there wouldn't be any tree permits as well. It might just be a fire hydrant relocation.
Oh, so you're sure that even curb cuts you do not need to be reviewed or approved, or you will not trigger any variance?
The only, through you, Mr. Chair, the only variances that could be triggered would be if the design of the driveway impacted the front yard landscaping. And we are content to remove those variances today and try and design something that meets the bylaw requirements, both for landscaping and amount of soft landscaping.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Larry?
Thanks, Chair. And Mr. Bronskill, that was a very helpful overview presentation. Referred to the rear structure as a covered room. When we look at the drawings and we look at the photos it appears to be a covered patio, the way I look at it. I just wonder, there's no intent to actually construct wall or anything like that around that room. It's going to be, in my vernacular, an open patio.
Correct. This may just be how things get labeled on architectural plans more than anything, but correct. When you that rear, thank you for the question. That rear elevation, I think, does show it as really as a covered porch or deck. We can't hide the fact that it's not a small roof on it, but there's no variances for the roof or the deck or the porch itself. And again, it doesn't extend as far back as a neighbor. I did see that the adjacent neighbor expressed a concern with privacy. I think when you look at the rear three-dimensional massing, it's helpful because, as you've noted, it really is a deck space, and it doesn't extend actually as far back as her first-story room. So I think in the end, that actually is a good relationship in terms of backyards and those side-by-side amenity spaces.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Marion Paisley.
Hello, yes.
Hello.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I'm a neighbor at 239 Russell Hill Road, and I reviewed the application.
Can we have your name for the record, sir?
Yes, it's Marlon Paisley. Address is 239 Russell Hill Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to call in and share my support for the application. I do feel that it is reasonable and just calling in for that reason.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Diane Sachs.
Yes, hello. My name is Diane Sachs. I live at 248 Russell Hill Road. Sorry for the puppy. If I had known that the applicant was going to withdraw the variances sought for the front yard, I wouldn't be here today. Those are my primary concern. I don't have any objection to the two remaining variances. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Those are your comments?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Benjamin Rubin.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Rubin. I live across the street at 229 Russell Hill Road. I also primarily objected to the over paving and under landscaping of the front, and it sounds like they are withdrawing that and are not and will be complying with the 60% minimum maximum hard surfaces, etc. And those were the concerns that were really pressing. So if that is in fact the case, that those are being withdrawn, then I don't really mind the other one in the backyard.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Bronskill, I don't think we have to come back to you. You've satisfied the opposition. So, panel, do we have comments, or motion, or? Yes, Larry.
Yeah, I'm gonna move a motion on this one, Chair, to, first of all, acknowledge the applicant's, effort to respond to, a lot of community, interest in this file, so that's a kind of a happy outcome, all around, so that's good. This is a huge lot, huge house, but, quite, I think the lot of it is quite consistent with what's already there. I thought the rear addition was modest. It was helpful to hear the explanation as to the length and depth. Like this building doesn't really go any further back than the adjacent neighbor, so I think the impact is minimal. The variances are reasonable, and I would move approval of this application, subject to the removal of variance 3 and 4.
Yes, and
I think
Urban Forestry,
conditions
number
were-
2.
Was it a forestry number 2? Great,
Pardon?
thank you, I missed that.
Yeah, it's number 2. Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Seconder? Yim, you second? Okay, all in favor? Have your approval, thank you, sir. Number 24. 291 Lauder Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a front one-story addition in order to enclose a portion of the front porch and to install new exterior front stairs. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, 2 form letters in support from addresses on Lauder, and a 21 signature petition in support from addresses on Lauder Avenue. Lillian Gonsalves and Wellesley Kwong.
Yes, my name's Lillian Gonsalves. I'm the homeowner of 291 Lauder Avenue. And here I'm here to present today the proposal of enclosing a portion of our front porch. There's 2 variances that this affects.
Okay,
The
I
first
don't think,
variance.
Ms. Gonzalez, I don't think we need a presentation. I'm
Oh,
gonna take
okay.
it in, I'm gonna take it into committee. If there's anything you need to say to the panel, then please say it, or else we're gonna go in and consider the application.
No, if you have questions, I'd like to receive your questions. Go ahead.
Okay, Yim, you have a question?
I have a motion. No.
Okay, make a motion.
Oh, I agree. This is a straightforward construction, and I don't have any problem. And the variants are really triggered by the existing condition, really, right? So I move for approval with no conditions.
Okay, we have a seconder? Nimrod, all in favor? Have your approval, thank you very much. Number 25. (1063) St. Clarence Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling by partially extending the 3rd story at the rear of the dwelling. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. Ahmad Reza Sadrad.
Yes, please.
That's you?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes. My name is
Can we
Ahmad
have your
Reza
name?
Sadrad.
Can we have your name and address for the record?
My name is Ahmad Reza Zadrad. The address is 27 Broomlands Drive, Maple, Ontario.
Okay, so I don't think we need a presentation from you, sir. Unless, do you have anything to say to the panel before we take it into committee?
Me? No.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, panel, do you have have any questions, or do we have a motion? Yes,
I'm
Nimrod?
happy to bring forward a motion. There's only one variance, and I believe the variance proposed is minor. The rear extension is very small, and so I would move approval with no conditions.
All right, do we have a seconder? Larry?
Chair, I wonder if Nimrod would be open to a little friendly amendment. I noticed it's kind of a third-story terrace there, and I don't think there is any screening on it, or if there is, I wouldn't mind just adding that. A pretty high terrace. A large one, too. It's a large one. It's not a Juliet or anything, so it implies that people are going to spend a little bit of time out there. I wonder if we could add some screening language. You okay with that?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, which sides, Larry?
East
Sorry,
and
it's
west.
it's east and west. It's the rear third story terrace, east and west side.
Okay, all right, so that's okay, Nimrod?
Yes.
Okay, seconder, Larry?
Sure.
Okay, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 26, 243 Margaretta Street. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a two-story rear addition with a basement addition. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and 4 form letters in support. Mr. Galbraith.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Could we have your name and your address for the record?
My name is Sean Galbraith, and my address is 1 Young Street, Unit 1801. I'm here on behalf of the application.
Yeah, I don't think we need an presentation from you today, so perhaps, do you have anything to say before we go into committee?
No, I would appreciate any comments that you have. I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Panel, any questions, comments, or do we have a motion? Yes, Yim. You're muted, Yim. You're muted.
Okay, yes. Yeah, I think it's a straightforward, there's only 2 variances, and they do have a support even to the 2 adjacent property owners. And I do not have any problem, and I consider the 2 variants are minor and move for approval with no conditions.
A seconder? Yes, Nimrod. Okay, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 27, 20 Westbrook Avenue. Purpose of this application is to construct a new deck attached to the rear of the existing 2-story detached dwelling. In addition, an ancillary building, a detached garage, will be constructed in the rear yard. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, email correspondence from planning.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's also a copy of revised plans that were submitted on October the 25th and correspondence from the agent.
Okay. Yes. Nikita Matkarskil? Matkarski.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Nikita Matsarski, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owners of the property located at 20 Westbrook Avenue. Do you want me to present it?
No. Well, there's a lot of variances. Just give us a very brief description of what's happening here.
So basically, we're proposing a garage in the backyard and a deck which is attached to the rear main wall and to the proposed garage. And yeah, most of the variances are related to the deck and the garage.
Okay. Panel, do you have any questions? Yes, Nimrod?
Yeah, my question is that the revised site plan now shows that the side yard is to be a permeable material. I just want to clarify that.
Yes. That's because of the soft landscaping, it is supposed to be 50% and we have only 25%. And when we worked with the planning department, they suggested us to use this type of cover.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? We have comments or a motion? Nimrod?
Yep, so I'd like to put forward a motion. I believe that the variances are minor in nature, and in order to pick up on that revised site plan, I would suggest a condition be added that the driveway located in the rear yard and the side yard be a permeable material as shown on the revised site plan.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Yes, Larry, all in favor? Have your approval, sir, thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay, number 28, 596 Crawford Street. Purpose of this application is to convert the existing two-story, single-family, semi-detached dwelling into a two-story, two-unit, semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear two-story addition with a rear third-story rooftop deck, a front basement walkout, a rear ground floor deck, a new front porch, and a rear two-story staircase. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from Urban Forestry, and opposition from 356 Harvard Street. Yeah, Eddie Perez.
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name is Eddie Perez. I'm a designer and I'm here on behalf of the owner.
Okay, perhaps you could give us a brief presentation. We have some opposition.
Yeah, we're proposing to add a two-story addition. We are removing an existing one-story addition that's there present and adding a very minimal 1.36 meters more than what's there on the first floor, and we're adding 12.19 square meters on the second floor. So the total difference of what we're adding is 13.55 square meters, which is very minimal. And we also want to eliminate variance 3 because we're 0.4 meters away with the stairs. We can make it 0.6, so we can eliminate variance 3.
Okay.
And then there's the thing with the front entrance. That's very common in the area. I actually did the drawing across the street for 579 in around 2001, and it was also a duplex. And there's many more with front entrances, so it's very common in the areas for duplexes to have a front entrance. That's all I have to say for now.
Okay, any questions, panel? Okay, so Mr. Powers.
Hi, Andrew. If you can't hear me, you're unmuted. You may need to unmute on your end.
Hey. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. There's just some background noise. If you can turn off any devices.
Mr. Powers, you're repeating yourself, or something's playing there that we can't hear you. Hello?
Hi, Andrew. If you can hear us, before you unmute your mic, if you can turn off any other devices in the background.
Yes, it's dialed in as well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I apologize for the technology, Mr. Chair. I'm ready. Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Powers, and I own 594 Crawford Street. I'm the immediate adjoining neighbor of 596 Crawford Street, which I'm going to refer to as the subject property. For the information of this committee and the applicant, I have obtained the law firm Rubin and Adam Shipowitz urban land use planner to represent my interests and the interests of my concerned neighbors, including Lisa Conway, whose objection letter has been filed with this committee. Unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, my counsel was unavailable to attend, but he's provided me with speaking notes, which I will turn to now. The applicant is seeking 5 minor variances. I object to the application in its entirety because it does not satisfy the requirements of subsection 45(1) of the Planning Act as amended. The requested variances are not minor, are not desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land and building, and do not maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw or official plan. All 4 criteria must be satisfied for each variance, and this application fails in each regard. In response to the specific variances requested, number 1, a secondary suite is only permitted to be a maximum of 45% of the interior floor area of the dwelling unit. The proposal is for 54.3%. Section 150-10-40-40 of Toronto zoning bylaw 569-2013 states the interior floor area of a secondary suite must be no more than 45% of the interior floor area of the dwelling unit in which it is located. This section is discussed in the as-of-right zoning for secondary suites staff report dated February 25th, 2019, which introduced the rationale for this zoning permission. There it outlines the rationale for permitting secondary suites in Toronto and explicitly limits the secondary suite floor area to ensure subordination. I quote, "In order to ensure a secondary suite within a detached house is subordinate to the primary dwelling unit and to distinguish from a duplex, staff also recommend amending the zoning regulations to require the interior floor area of all secondary suites to be no more than 45% of the overall dwelling unit." Council approved the concept of subordinate secondary suites and fixed it in the bylaw. The very definition of a secondary suite states that it should be, quote, subordinate to the principal dwelling. Reference bylaw section 80.5735. For this reason, a secondary suite with an interior floor area of more than 45%, such as proposed by the application, is not subordinate to the principal dwelling and is not keeping with the intent or spirit of the secondary suite provisions introduced by the city. It is not desirable for the appropriate development of the subject property to permit a secondary suite that exceeds rules established by council. Council established 45% as the upper limit of secondary suite interior floor area. The application seeks an exceedance of even that upper limit and therefore is not minor. In addition, the interior floor area percentage proposed is not desirable for the appropriate development of the subject property and is contrary to the general intent and purpose of the bylaw. The subject property is designated neighborhoods on map 18 of Toronto's official plan. The application does not maintain the general intent and purpose of the neighborhoods policies of the official plan, which establish the desirable development of neighborhoods. When considering development criteria, the official plan states that, quote, "The stability of our neighborhood's physical character is one of the keys to Toronto's success. Physical changes to our established neighborhood must be sensitive, gradual, and fit the existing physical character," end quote. That's official plan, chapter 4, parts 4 to 3. In addition, the failure of the application to meet the above noted policies established in the bylaw is contrary to official plan policy 4.1.8. which provides that, quote, "Zoning bylaws will contain numerical site standards for matters such as building type and height, density, lot sizes, lot depths, lot frontages, parking, building setbacks from lot lines, landscaped open space, and any other performance standards to ensure that new development will be compatible with the physical character of established residential neighborhoods." Point number 2, maximum FSI established under zoning bylaw is 0.69. The applicant is proposing an FSI of 0.094, which represents a 36% increase. This is not minor. The applicant has not undertaken a city-generated research request to demonstrate this FSI is appropriate for this area or at all common. Point number 3, exterior stairs can be no closer to a lot line than 0.6 meters. It sounds like we have some resolution here.
Mr. Power, that variance has been deleted.
Agreed, thank you. Point 4, the minimum required front yard landscaping must be 75% soft landscaping. The applicant is purporting 46%. This is a 29% deficiency with respect to soft landscaping. This is not minor. Impacts of such reduction could be more than merely visual, i.e. water absorption rates and possible negative drainage issues on the adjoining home. Point number 5, pedestrian entrance to a secondary suite not permitted in the front wall. Proposed new basement walkout is located at a front main wall. Appreciating that there are examples of this on the street, the proposed new basement walkout at the front wall is also made redundant by the new walkout being proposed at the rear of the dwelling. Query why this secondary basement suite needs 2 separate entrances, particularly when one of them requires this significant variance. Additional concerns, light, privacy, and overlook. The 3rd floor deck platform is proposed to be an enormous 30.5 square meters. This is bigger than the deck above the green monster at Fenway Park. Not only is this a massive physical space, but the elevation creates overlook concerns, and at this size could accommodate large congregations of people, especially in this multi-unit building. That will have implications on all adjacent properties, mine and that of Ms. Conway. Typically, additions to existing homes are required to step down at the rear in order to maintain light and air into adjacent adjoining properties. The proposal will have the effect of creating a solid wall facing my property as well as adjoining properties on Harvard like Ms. Conway's. This is neither fair nor appropriate. In some residential zone categories, the maximum floor area of a platform is limited to 4 square meters. I urge this committee to also consider the minor variances it permitted in 2015 in respect of 354 Harvard Street, which saw 6 4-story townhomes erected directly to the south of my house, eliminating my views, access to natural light and air, and above all, any sense of privacy whatsoever. Approving this 2nd-story addition and 3rd-story deck will effectively box me in, darken my property, and further deteriorate what little privacy I have left. The cumulative impact of the variances, Mr. Chair, are not minor and will allow for a built form that will create a condition on the neighboring properties that is neither desirable nor appropriate. Last, the drawing package on the development applications website submitted in support of this application is incomplete in a material way and does not show any details of the proposed 2nd floor or south elevation. These details are critical for our neighborhood to assess what is going on here. We have not had the ability to assess the 2nd floor or south elevation whatsoever. As such, the committee and concerned citizens such as myself cannot appropriately assess the nature and impact without these materials being provided. On that basis, a deferral is appropriate until the necessary drawings can be produced and assessed by the neighbors in this committee. That is all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions, panel? Mr. Perez?
Hello, good afternoon. I heard the concerns.
Can you speak up, sir?
The 90.94%.
Mr. Perez, Mr. Perez, I'm having trouble hearing you. Could you speak up?
Yes, sir. For the 0.94% that the gentleman was talking about, we are only adding an additional 0.07%. The house is already within it, it's at 87%. So, and the only addition we're adding is a little bit to the 1st floor and a little bit to the 2nd floor. We are not asking for length whatsoever. We are not asking for height whatsoever. The other issues that gentleman was talking about, we already have a fire escape there. We're just going to rebuild the fire escape. If you look at if you put up the existing survey, you'll see that there's already a fire escape. So we are not changing what's there very slightly. We're only adding the 2nd floor, which is very common in the area. If you look to the north, there's an addition which lines up exactly the same as ours. So we're not out of character, like the gentleman said. We're within character of the area. There are many front yard walkouts, as you can see. There's across the street and many more locations. And it's just a bylaw that they put in for secondary suites, but if you were to do a single-family house, you're allowed a front walkout. So it's not out of the care of the area. I feel that we meet the 4 tests, and I feel that the committee should take our application and look at it in the point of view that I'm presenting to you.
All right.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Perez, I have 2 questions. Number 1, Mr. Powers has indicated that you have a deck that far exceeds the 4 meters, but it's not a variance. Why is that?
Because we're in Toronto. In Toronto, they don't have a variance for 4 square meters. They only have it in some jurisdictions.
Okay.
So it's not a variance.
The second thing I wanted to ask was, variance number 1. We've been getting these applications where they say the secondary suites can't be more than 45%, but usually we have, when they are more than 45%, we usually have 2 or 3 or 4 secondary suites being requested. In this case, there's only 1, and it exceeds the area of the primary suite. Why is that? Is this a physically the way the building lays out?
The examiner took the secondary suite as to be the 2nd and 3rd floor, which comes out to more than the 1st and the basement together. Yeah. It's just a technicality. It's not a overdevelopment. It's very minor. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Nimrod, you have a question?
Yeah, I did not see floor plans for the 2nd floor, so is that something that we can put up? Because I was trying to.
Yeah, well, what happened? I just looked at my file, and I did submit it with it. A different file must have got submitted, because I looking at my file that I sent to the city, and it had the 2nd floor. It must have been a previous one that I had put in, but I did apply with the 2nd floor and the south elevation. The 2nd floor is the exact same size as the 1st floor.
Yeah, but I was trying to determine where is the kitchen for the top unit, and so the kitchen's not on the 3rd floor, it's on the 2nd floor, and so we don't have any floor plans for that to clearly show
the kitchen's on the 2nd floor in that addition. It's in the 2nd floor in that addition, the kitchen. That's where the kitchen is, on the 2nd floor in that addition.
He said that he has submitted a 2nd floor plan. It just happened that did not get included in our package.
It didn't get included. I'm looking at my file here. I have it all drawn out. I have the side, I have the kitchen, it's in the back. It's just not in the package. I don't know. I just looked at the website. The gentleman's correct. It wasn't in the package. But on my drawings, I have it, all of it.
Larry?
No way I can show you right now, but I have it here. I can email it to you quick if you wanted to.
That's okay. Larry?
Yeah, so Chair, I just want to pick up on the point you initially raised. I don't really have any, frankly, problem with the all application. What I am a little bit surprised at is, in fact, the size of the rooftop terrace, and particularly if that's going to be a rent unit. I thought that when it exceeded a certain square footage, that it required a variance. I'm assuming that that's not the case. Otherwise, we would see a variance here. So I don't think I have any recourse to deal with the size of, but I think we can. If we decide to support this application, we can put in private screening around the entire perimeter, just because it does have a fairly significant amount of overlook, particularly given that side street abuts just 2 houses down. You've got a side street with everyone's backyard kind of facing this proposed new addition. So if we decide to approve it, I don't think we can deal with the size of it, because there's no variance before us, but I think we can crowd it in privacy screening.
On the south, on the elevation, I did put the screening on both sides.
Yeah, I want it on me too. I want it around the entire perimeter.
Okay, that's fine, we can do that.
Okay, any further questions? Okay. We have comments or a motion?
I'm happy to jump in, Chair, and what my colleagues think, but again, I think the actual addition, frankly, is pretty modest. Current FSI is already at 0.87, so the amount of increase in FSI is really quite modest. Overall, it's not a huge addition. I acknowledge the gentleman's concern immediately, but again, I don't think this is a really huge addition. I think it's out of character with the area. I think it's supportable. If my colleagues don't have anything to the contrary, I'm happy to move a motion, kind of kick things off on the motion to approve subject forestry number 1, but also subject to conditions the rooftop terrace have privacy screening around the entire perimeter.
And also, Larry, and also he deleted variance 3 as amended.
As amended, yes, thank you very much.
Larry, I thought it was forestry condition number 2. That's what my note said.
Number 1 I have.
I have number 1 written down, Chair.
I have number 1 too.
Oh, okay. All right. Seconder, Yim, you seconded?
With those conditions, yeah.
Yep, okay. All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 29, 201 Pearson Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a three-story rear addition, a front porch enclosure, and a rear deck. With this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, a report from Urban Forestry, support from 209 Pearson, 3 form letters in support from 2 addresses on Ronsonsville and 1 address on Pearson, and opposition from 1 address on Pearson. Osren Stambuk.
Hello, Mr. Chair. This is Osren Stambuk from 1410 DuPont Street, Unit 905.
Thank you. Can we have some opposition, so we need a brief presentation from you, sir.
Absolutely. So, really, I think the most significant variances in this case, actually, I'll address the opposition letter first, because in that way I can also address some of the variances. So the main concern of the opposition is a 1-story rear addition that has an east-facing window that you can see on that site plan that I drew there. And that east-facing window is basically providing overlook over the backyard at 201 Pearson, the subject property. So in that sense, it's not a big concern that we are, in a way, this addition is preventing overlook over our backyard in this case. In terms of the other concerns of the other windows, it is really notable that we do not have a depth or length variance, which would be the same in this case because the front yard setback is very close. So in this case, with no depth or length variance, actually we are almost 4 meters under the, we could actually extend 4 more meters in the back, but I think the point here was to design something that kind of fit within the character of the neighborhood, fit with number 199, and also this gives an opportunity for number 203 to match something similar if they so desire. But I do not think it presents any privacy concerns because we don't have a balcony or anything like that. And otherwise, if we're just looking at some of the more minor variances, we are rebuilding the front porch, which is provoking some of the variances, but it's being basically rebuilt to the same size as the existing porch. And we do have a wall height variance, but it is for a portion that you can see here on the elevation view of the third floor addition that is actually set back even further back than the second story addition and is not nearly as wide as the house. The house is about 22 feet wide. That back addition, if you were to look at the back elevation, that back addition is actually a lot more narrow than the house. It's about 12 feet wide. So in that sense, I think we have proposed something tasteful here, something that makes sense and something that fits within the character of the neighborhood. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, Yim?
Oh, I just like to know the existing FSI and also how much you're actually adding.
So the existing FSI, actually, I'm sorry, I apologize for that, is not listed on the site plan, but I did a quick calculation. It's about 88%. 88%, and what we are proposing is 109%.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you're adding about 20, right? 20%.
About, yes.
Yeah, okay. So you have some comparables in the area that to justify these increases in characters of the in the area.
So the directly the neighbor directly to the east, number 199. We can't ever tell what is the actual floor area of houses we see from the street or from the survey, but number 199, as you can see with the depth, that is basically a 2.5-story similar shape of structure that kind of fits within the character of what we're proposing here. So that's directly the neighbor, and we were very cognizant of this when I was designing that back addition to make it basically not protrude farther than number 199. Of course, we cannot say what is the exact floor area, what are the voids, things like that. But in terms of massing and the form factor, I think we're matching what's at least in the direct neighbor to the east of us. But I will also say that, as committee always mentions, we're not really looking at precedent here. I think this application on its own stands as something reasonable because of the fact that we're not even close to exceeding the length or depth that would be permitted in this neighborhood.
Any further questions? Okay, Mara Nickerson?
Yes, I'm Mara Nickerson. We live at 203 Pearson Avenue. And as our notice indicated, our objection is to the extension and the impact that it does have on the light in our house. I don't know the extent to which ultimately that is relevant, but as you can see from the plans, he focused, the previous speaker focused primarily on the east-facing window. Our bigger concern is the main window that faces south, that is between our bump out and the new addition. That is the primary light that gets in the back of our house. It's that window and the little east-facing windows are the only windows back here, and it will now have a brick wall on both sides. So it's not so much that we can't see his backyard or their backyard, it's that our window, which is unfortunately a bit of a bay window, a third of it is angled towards theirs and a third looks out and a third looks at our nook, but it means our view and the light into our property will be significantly reduced. We are looking at what we can do to mitigate the impact of that. I think Mr. Ozen suggested we could choose to bump out as well. That would be a huge renovation for us that is not within our means. We would have to go down 2 stories because there is a walkout underneath that window, underneath that bump out. But we are looking at other things on the west side of the house, but we have not had an opportunity to go through that with the contractor or to price those out and consider what's within our means. So, you know, we don't want to step on our neighbors' rights to improve their property, but we are very concerned about the light and into our property and the significant impact. On the second and third floor, there are similar windows that will be impacted, but because they're open on the west side, it won't be as significant. Unfortunately, on the first floor, because of the bump out, it will be significantly impacted. So thank you.
Where is your actual window that you're concerned about?
If you look on right there, it's on the wall that faces into the yard. I don't know how to, can you?
Your back wall?
Yes, on the back wall. So it looks out into the backyard.
So that's between the bump out and the next door property?
Property. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So we are, you know, and that's our problem. The bump out was there when we bought the house on one side, but having the neighbor's backyard open right now does allow light to come in, but we are concerned about the light that will come in when there's, and the window literally goes across most of that space. There's a little less than a foot from the neighbor's wall, our window starts.
Right. Which direction does that window face?
It faces south. And it's a bit of a bay window, as I say, so some of it is angled towards the neighbor's yard, but, so it faces out, but it will be looking at a lot of it, from a lot of angles, we'll be looking at the wall, unless you're looking straight out. From any other portion of the room, you'll be looking at the neighbor's wall.
Okay. All right.
And that east window that is on the nook does get a fair bit of morning light now, and that will be gone with that wall there.
So you're talking about the bump out?
Yes.
Or what do you use that for?
It's, at the moment, it's got built-in storage along the back wall, and otherwise it's just to let light into the space. It's not a big, we don't have a big room back here, so it's used for storage, and but it's open into the room. It's this, so this, there is no closure there. It's open into our kitchen eating area.
Right. Okay.
The wall isn't, it's not walled in the way it looks like in the plans.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Stanbuck?
Yes?
Yeah. So do you want to give us your position with respect to the, I know you've already spoken to it, but perhaps you could just repeat the impact that your client's extension might have on those windows and the light.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for all the comments. I do appreciate that there is a concern for light. I mean, that is always an issue with these applications, but I think we have tried to keep that rear extension really reasonable to 2.81 meters. So that's basically just a little bit over 9 feet, and it's very important for the owner to have this extra space for a growing family, and to have that kind of space for their house. So it's kind of like basically that there wasn't too much choice on how it was designed. Also, 201 has a similar bump out presently in the back that is actually very similar to the bump out at 203. It's not actually seen on the site plan there, but basically that bump out is effectively just used for storage at the moment. In terms of speaking to the configuration of windows, would it have less of an impact if it wasn't a bay window? Does the bay window actually allow more light despite this wall that's going to be there now? I'm not sure. I really can't speak to those issues, but I think it's okay that we have this little bit of protrusion that we're asking for. And one thing I will just reiterate again, And as of right, new house here could go back, if you just quickly, if staff could really quickly pull up the site plan, it could go back up to where the deck stairs are. So 17 meters is basically an additional, and I'll tell you right now, compared to the house, so it's an additional 6 meters, so an additional 21 foot back from the existing back wall. That new house could be built at that point, because the lot is allowing a building depth of 17 meters. So that really affects. We're not asking for anything even near that much. If you look at where it says proposed deck and you look at the little steps going up to it, 17 meters is basically just a little bit farther than those steps. So what we're asking for is something really minor compared to what is allowed by the bylaw as of right. Of course, we have to consider that, you know, there would be a bigger floor area variances were we to go that far back. But for example, we could have the same floor area variance, but go back that far only 1 story. And then effectively really, then there would be, and that would be as of right, that would be allowed, but then there would be more light blocked in that corner. I think there's a lot of solutions here for how number 203 can receive that light they're missing. It doesn't mean that they have to build out a 9-foot back extension. It could mean that, you know, that 1-story area is widened, and more fenestration and windows are put into that back wall. So I believe there's a number of solutions, and I believe that our proposal is really reasonable considering all that.
Right, thank you. Panel, any questions? Okay, do we have comments or a motion? Yes, Yim.
Yeah, I can start. I hear the explanation of applicant. I agree with him that it's inevitable there might be small change after the addition. But I think that these backyards are primarily facing south, and they're quite deep. And I'm not too sure that there will be loss of that much light. Maybe certain hours for a little bit of the east light. So I'm not too concerned with that. And then I think that he has explained. The only thing I was looking at is the FSI. I think that he has explained that in the area is very comparable, and they also is adding on top of the existing is already exceeding 0.6. I'm in support of this application, and I don't see any other. Oh, there's the forestry 1 condition, but I let my colleagues comment on it.
Okay, any other comments? Nimrod?
Yeah, I would agree with those comments. Just as an aside, I think the zoning bylaw attempts to deal with how to limiting the size of development, not just using one regulation, but it's a combination of regulations. And so it includes the FSI as well as the length of building. So once you exceed 1, that becomes the trigger point. It's not like you automatically are allowed to build the full 17 meters, because you can then trigger another variance, such as exceeding your maximum FSI. So, but I would agree with the comments of my colleague, and I would support her motion.
Okay, did you make a motion, Yim?
Yeah, so I'm proposing a motion to for approval with forestry condition number 1.
Okay, we have a seconder. Nimrod, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 30, 151 Dewborne Avenue. Purpose of this application is to construct a new 3-story detached dwelling with an integral garage, a ground floor rear deck, and 3rd-story rear terrace. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, 3 form letters in support and opposition from numerous addresses on Dewborne and Ava Road, and a 15 signature petition in opposition from properties on Dewborne, Glen Cedar, Ava Road, and Menon Road. Yeah. Shadi Arani?
Yes.
Yes. Can we have your name and address, please?
My name is Shadi Orani from 685 Shepherd Avenue East, Unit 511.
Okay, you better give us a presentation because there's opposition here.
Yes, I'm here on behalf of the owner of 151 Dewborne Avenue for the construction of a 3-story single-family detached, as you mentioned. I just wanted to make a quick correction. You mentioned that there's a rear deck. There's only a paved area in the back, and we are not proposing any rear deck at ground floor. The proposal is for a 3-story building, while the 3rd story has sloped walls within the roof. So the 3rd story, in fact, is an attic area within the roof area. And we are requesting 3 variances from the zoning bylaw. The first variance is the east yard setback. Currently, the existing 2-story building on site has a side yard setback of 0.3 meters, and we are proposing a setback of 0.6 meters, which is 1 foot improvement to the existing setback. I know the east side neighbor mentioned in their letter that the proposed setback would cause them difficulty in parking their car, but in fact, the proposed setback would increase the distance from the building to the property line, and it will make it easier for them to park. Many of the houses in the neighborhood have the setback of 1 to 2 foot, the side yard from one side, and from the other side, larger setback, which would be the case for us. The next variance is the building length. We are requesting for the length to be increased from the allowable 17 meters to 17.9. The property has sufficient depth, the lot, that even with this variance will still be able to maintain a rear yard setback of 12.86 meters, where the bylaw requires a rear yard setback of 9.52 meters. And we are adhering to the height required as per bylaw and have placed the 3rd floor within the attic, as I mentioned before, inside the roof, just to reduce any overshadowing on the adjacent properties. Also, by putting the 3rd story in the attic area, we were able to keep the height of the main walls to 7.9 meters to prevent overshadowing, where the bylaw actually allows for 8.5 meters. The last variance that we are requesting today is the floor space index of 0.868. We notice in the objection letters that the FSI is being perceived as the lot coverage. Some of the neighbors misunderstood that the building will cover 86% of the lot and will reduce softscape, while the building will actually cover only 37% of the lot. The proposal will provide 95% soft landscaping in the front and 86% soft landscape in the rear, which are both over what the bylaw requires. And with regards to the issue of the privacy, as a result of the construction of a new house, the building has no windows facing the east neighbor, and on the west side has no windows at the rear portion of the building on the side to cause any overlooking. With regards to the window and terrace on the 3rd floor, I would like to mention, as you can see on the side elevation, I'm sure you have reviewed this, the extent of this window is shown with a dashed line on both sides elevations, and the terrace, they're both set into the roof, and they're both protected by side walls inside the roof. It should be shown with a dashed line. I do believe these are the older version of the drawings. We submitted revised drawings after we reduced the length. So they're set into the roof, and they can't cause any overlooking into the neighboring properties. And I also wanted to mention that this terrace, yes, here you can see the dashed line on both sides, and the vertical dash line shows the extent of where the window is, and the horizontal dash line on one of the elevations shows the railing inside. So when you're stepping into that terrace, in fact, you're protected on the sides by the roof. And the area of that terrace is 3.57 square meters, which is still below the maximum allowable as per bylaw. The requested variances are to accommodate for the design that meets the needs of the owner and his wife and child to live there. And the owner has asked me to confirm in front of the committee that the assumption provided by one of the neighbors regarding him being a developer trying to build a house to make a profit is actually false. And I just wanted to mention this quickly. The owner of 153 Dewborne claims that we did not reach out to her. This is while on October 3rd, about 4 weeks ago, myself and the owner together went and knocked on her door. We sat at her dining table, showed her the drawings and the zoning notice, and presented the design. The concern that she mainly expressed that day when we met was with regards to the tree that she has in her backyard, which we have shown now a tree protection fence on the property, on the site plan, to make sure that the tree would remain safe. I even left my business card with her and asked her if she has any concerns. It would be great if she could reach out to me, but we never heard back from her until we saw the objection letter online. Same with the other side neighbor, 149 Dewborne, Mr. Stein, whom I believe is online today, claimed that we never reached out to them. On the same day, October 3rd, we knocked on their door and spoke to Mrs. Stein. We asked her if there's any way we can make adjustments to the proposal to make her happy. In return, she just told us that if we apply for any variances to the bylaw, she's gonna fight it and she will object. And she said if I'm a good architect, I should be designing the house within the zoning bylaw. I left my business card with her, but never heard back. Mr. Stein, I believe you're online now. I suggest that you check this with Mrs. Stein. We door knocked on all adjacent properties. My client and his wife will be moving to this house, so they made every effort to reach out to the neighbors and receive feedback. He emailed objecting neighbors requesting a meeting, hoping for a constructive
Ms.
conversation
Serrani,
to address their...
Ms.
Yes,
Serrani, your time is up. If you could just wrap up.
for sure. But you have a copy of those, and with the exception of one, we didn't hear back from any of them. We have reduced the variances to mitigate the impact of a new house for the neighbors as best as we could, and we submitted a revised proposal 4 days ago. After these reductions made, the proposed building will not be the largest, neither the longest building in the neighborhood, especially with approvals such as 37 Camberwell Road with an FSI of 128%, or 124 Ava Road with an approved length of 22.53 meters, or 160 Ava Road with a length of 20.8 meters. And thank you for your time, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Panel, any questions? Yes, Nimrod?
So if we can put up the revised site plan, and I would just like the applicant to explain what has happened, like what is the change that has been made in terms of the length of the building compared to the original proposal?
So the original proposal had a length of 18.5, and the revised proposal has a length of 17.9. And as you mentioned in the previous application, FSI is a byproduct of that, so the FSI has also been reduced after the length was reduced.
And so has the building been pushed at the rear? It has been pushed further away from the rear yard?
Yes, so the front of the building remained where it was, and since we reduced the length, now the rear yard setback has increased.
Thank you.
All right. Rhonda Fromstein?
Hi, Rhonda. You should be unmuted now.
Oh, okay, thank you. Hello, I'm Rhonda Fromstein, and we live at...
All right, we're having trouble hearing you, Ms. Fromstein.
Can you hear me now?
Well, I think you should move closer to the microphone.
How's this?
That's better.
Yes? Okay, thank you. Hello, I am Rhonda Fromstein, and we live at 153 Dewborne, immediately next door to 151 Dewborne. It is our understanding that zoning bylaws exist to prevent overdevelopment of lots and to limit development impact on adjacent properties and neighbors. Numerically, at 0.868 FSI, that cannot not be considered minor because it's more than twice the 0.4 FSI that's permitted in the zoning bylaw. And in this way, it does not meet the definition of a minor variance. We did our research of previous Committee of Adjustment refusals in this neighborhood in the past 10-year period, and we came up with many examples where the committee has refused applications with FSI variances lower than the 0.87 FSI now being requested. Several examples of these FSI variances being refused were provided in my opposition letter in the appendix table 1. For example, 0.76 FSI was refused, 0.79 was refused, 0.82 was refused, and 0.87 FSI was refused. We ask that the Committee of Adjustments be consistent with these previous refusals. In terms of impact, a building length beyond the 17-meter bylaw will cause a reduction of 5 hours of morning sunlight in our backyard, as it will completely block the sun until around 12 noon in the summertime. A reduction of 5 hours cannot be considered a minor impact, and in this way, it does not meet the definition of a minor variance. Please refer to the shadow cast tracking results we detailed in our opposition letter, appendix table 2, and photos 3 and 4. We ask that the applicant builds within the permitted 17-meter length, which would still give him a substantial home, and it would reduce our shadowing impacts. It would also reduce the FSI. We said this actually when the architect came around. We walked around, and this leads to the next point. We were concerned about the length from the beginning for a few reasons, one of which is the next point, and that was the interaction she's talking about. And virtually a 2-foot reduction in the building length is not material. It just permits them to say, look, we reduced it. Yeah, you reduced it by 2 feet. Anyway, a building length beyond the 17-meter bylaw will destroy our mature Dawn redwood tree. Protecting its canopy or protecting its trunk just by putting some wood around it is not going to protect it. This tree is growing right near the property line, and it's shown in appendix 5 and 6. At the 17.9 new building length variance, almost half our tree's canopy would be removed. It's not just building right up to it. You can't have the tree growing into the brick. So that means it's even more reduced closer to the trunk than just saying we'll chop it off to allow the building to be erected. You have to chop further back, otherwise the canopy will keep growing into the south part of the property. So we're really talking about heading right back to the trunk. This alone could cause any tree to be killed, and half of its root system also have to be excavated to permit the building of the basement. So we have no guarantee that this won't kill our tree, and our arborist did advise us that common knowledge is you never cut more than 40% of the canopy, or else it weakens the tree. Not only are we doing that, but we're also ripping out a good portion of its root structure. In terms of recent amendments, the developer made a superficially small adjustment to their variances and plans, reducing the length by 0.6 meters, and which is still not acceptable. They did not work with us to arrive at these new numbers on their revised proposal. We were not advised of this latest change. They just showed their new minor variances to other neighbors, but chose not to involve either home adjacent to their property. We ask that the variances requested today are refused so that they can work, we can all work together. They can work with us, come up with a proper solution on building length. If these variances are approved, it will set a precedent to tear down Cedarville's characteristic homes and replace them with oversized mansions with small backyards, and our neighborhood character will be lost. To the owner's point, he has a young child, they're building a 6-bathroom house, almost all full bathrooms, almost all have full walk-in closets, and there are 2 master suites. On the 3rd floor is a master suite. So this is quite a sizable home for he and his wife and his young child. And anyway, for these reasons, the proposed variances do not satisfy the 4 criteria, and we ask that you refuse this variance application. Also ask that you be consistent with past refusals in this neighborhood for applications that were asking for less FSI variance. He's building a brand new home. If he builds within the bylaw, he's still going to have a substantial home. Thank you.
Any questions, panel? Mr. and Mrs. Stein?
Yes, I think you would.
Yes, my name is Pamela Stein. I live at 149 Dewborne Avenue. The proposed side yard setback of 0.6 meters instead of 1.2 meters is insufficient. This will make it very difficult to open the passenger side door when in the driveway. We must therefore stop in the middle of the street to allow passengers in or out. Our street is extremely busy. Cars do not stop. This is extremely dangerous. This is not a minor variance. Number 2, the proposed length of the new house, 151, will severely reduce the sunlight in our backyard, on our deck, and inside our now sunny home by 3 to 3.5 hours daily. Reference Table 1 in the appendix, shadow cast tracking. Our garden and deck in the spring, summer, and fall will be greatly compromised, and in the winter, after 2 p.m., no sun at all. Our now sunny home will not be sunny and bright. This is not a minor variance. Number 3, the proposed new house is huge. There is a proposed 3rd floor balcony looking right into our yard and deck. This will greatly affect our privacy and is extremely stressful. This is not a minor variance. We ask that the committee be consistent with past refusals in the neighborhood for applications that were asking for lower FSI than 0.87 times the area of the lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlene Brenzel?
One 155 Dewborne Avenue. Can you hear me?
Well, we missed the first part of what you were saying.
My name is Charlene Brenzel. I live at 155 Dewborne Avenue. So I am but one house west of the proposed application that you have before you. I have written in opposition to this application, and as you can tell, I am speaking in opposition as well. I feel fairly strongly about this. I have tried to research in the legislation, admitting my frailties on this. The definition of a minor variance was unable to find one. I'll allow for the possibility I missed it. What I did find was what was on the City of Toronto webpage, which describes the minor variance being used for issues such as small changes to building setback or parking requirements. And that's on the City of Toronto website. In my submission to you, I can't see how this structure could be considered a minor variance. You have heard some discussion about the characteristic of this neighborhood. It has traditionally attracted young families, such as mine at the time. Some of us have stayed longer years than minor, but that is a large part of the character of this characteristic of this neighborhood. There is Cedarvale School, one street over from this. When we talk about building huge houses, we're talking about a house with an elevator, which is definitely changing the characteristic of it. You're also changing the possibility of those young families being able to buy in this neighborhood, and thereby changing the character of the neighborhood in my submission. And I think that is important. You've heard that a number of applications have been denied by the committee. The applicant has indicated that there are some homes which have been approved in the wider neighborhood, not the immediate neighborhood. And what I'd submit to you with respect to homes that have been allowed that are bigger, that they shouldn't allow or enact a creeping effect so that every house that wants to be bigger now becomes bigger. I think in my submission that you must look at each application as it stands before you, and that this is a substantial change from the neighborhood. The amendments proposed are minor. I did speak to the applicant and his architect when they came around. They assured me that the third floor railing or terrace would not look down over my property. I've tried to look again to see how that wouldn't be possible, but it seems to me that it would, thereby impacting my privacy, my enjoyment, and my light. And effectively, those are my submissions, subject to any questions you may have.
Okay, panel, no questions? All right, go back to Ms. Arani.
Just a few quick points. They mentioned that approval of this application will set a precedent. I understand that the Committee of Adjustment does not work based on precedent, but just so they would know, 179 Dewborne Avenue has an approved FSI of 85%, which is a couple of doors up. 164 Dewborne Avenue is an approval of 81%. As I mentioned before, 37 Camberwell Road has an approval of 1.28%, 128%. And 124 Ava Road has an approval of 86%. These are nearby properties. You can see them on the map. Rhonda mentioned that she requested that we would work with her. She did not reach out to us after I left the card with her. And she just mentioned that the way to work out would be not to apply for a variance, which is the same thing the other adjacent neighbor requested. While this is what the Committee of Adjustment is for. And with regards to the side driveway, part of the driveway, in fact, right now is on my client's property, and they are parking on it. We actually suggested to Mrs. Stein that maybe we can work out a way to maintain the driveway like that. And again, we are increasing that setback. So if anything, and if we could maintain the driveway, it would improve her condition. It would make it easier for her to park her car. We made the adjustments with the hope that it would have less impact on the neighboring properties, since they did not contact us to ask for any change. They directly made the objections. And like I said before, we have the third floor as an attic area just to minimize the impact of the shadow and sun on the neighboring properties. While if we wanted to go by what the bylaw requires, we could still increase the height of the main walls. So a portion of the third floor would have straight walls as opposed to being in an attic area. I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, Ms. Arani, Ms. Fromstein was raised some issues with respect to a tree on her property, but I notice that there's no urban forestry conditions. I assume that they've investigated this application and found that there was no need for any conditions?
The tree has I believe a diameter of 0.15 meters. I believe that is the reason that there's no condition by urban forestry. because of the small diameter of the tree.
All right. Also, there was some concern raised about a deck. Are you, as your client, content to have screening around that deck?
As I mentioned before, there is no deck at the ground. If you see the site plan, it says paved area at grade, and the elevation matches the surrounding grade elevation, so it's just at grade. There is nothing raised there to cause any overlooking. The other concern that they had was the rear terrace on the 3rd floor, which, as I mentioned before, and you can see on the side elevations where I have shown it with the dashed line, it's set into the perimeter of the roof.
So it's not sticking out?
No.
All right, so
And another thing that we tried to do while we were designing the house was we do not have any further projections past the rear wall of the house, which the bylaw allows. For example, no canopies, no bay window, which the bylaw allows. So the 17.9 is the actual number. There's nothing past that. No deck, no balcony, no terrace, no protrusions.
So the third story deck has no overlook on any any houses on the side?
No, you can see that on the elevation. Even you can compare it from the height of the railing and the dashed line, because the window is set inside the roof.
Yeah. What is the protrusion on the first floor there? Looks like a ground floor deck.
That is at grade, actually. That's the natural grading of these lots in the neighborhood, that as you move to the back of the house, they grade up. So you can see the change in elevation on the survey or on the site plan, because they are noted there.
So it's not a deck, it's
No,
it's
there
a
is
patio?
nothing raised.
It's you
Yes.
would call it a patio?
It's just paved area. The other railing that you see is the railing to protect, which are guard required by OBC for protection of the steps going to the basement.
Okay. Panel, any other questions? Okay, we'll take it into committee. Any comments? Yes, Nimrod?
My comments are that I do have concerns with the overall FSI that's being proposed of 0.87. I'm still not convinced that what is being proposed in terms of the scale and massing fits with the character of the area. I haven't seen enough information provided by the applicant to justify the proposed FSI. And so I think the FSI combined with the reduced side yard, I think it results in an overdevelopment.
Any other comments? You have a motion?
No, Chair, before you go, perhaps I can just weigh in. First of all, I just wanted to acknowledge all the people who voted in and who signed the petition, who spoke today. I want to let you know that your comments and your input is very important and very helpful to us. I'm not uncomfortable with this proposal, and for the reason really is, if you do, there are other, not that there's precedent, there are other new builds in that area. If you go down to 165, 167 are new builds that actually are equally or even perhaps even more deep. And the streets adjacent do have other large homes. So I'm not sure that a large home on this lot would necessarily be out of character. I did think that the design that is proposed by the owner is actually a good one, particularly for the upper story, which is a mansard roof, which in my view has the impact or the effect of kind of mitigating the height of the third story, and I think that's a good way, as opposed to what we often see is straight up walls. And I think an attempt to try and improve the design and also to mitigate the impact of a third story. I did also want to acknowledge the owner's changes to the plan to reduce the length. It's not a huge change, but it is an attempt to reduce the impact, and it is a very minor inch over what's allowed. I'd also note that the the third-story balconies, I guess what we call now, aren't really what we consider to be balconies. They are inset, and so I am reasonably satisfied that the overlook issues aren't dramatic. You know, if you look at the actual variances, they are very minor. I do acknowledge that the FSI increase is based on the small house on that lot right now, fairly high. But again, I think there are homes in that neighborhood and beyond that are that amount or even greater. So I'm not as concerned about that. So I think this is not an unreasonable development in this neighborhood, and some of the efforts that the owner has undertaken to try and mitigate those concerns, I think, so I'm not uncomfortable with this application as is. I do acknowledge that, you know, there's a lot of people who weighed in on this one.
Jim? You're muted, Jim.
Yes, yes. I actually one point that was important to me is Larry. One of the things that he said. I do think that the designer has make an effort to slope the fifth floor, and I think that it does have a good design to mitigate the massing of it. And I hear of the oppositions, and we sort of encourage them to work with the neighborhood, but it sounds like that it was not that easy. The designer is trying to guess what they did not like or how much they reduced that they will be satisfied. It doesn't seem that they get to feedback. So I think they did try in their own way to reduce the design to at least moving into a more positive direction. And when you look at that, as it says, there's only 3 variances. The only one is the stands out is the FSI, and then I do think that in the neighborhood there are a few new homes are building into that kind of massing, and I'm also in support of that, given all this observation I made. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't see the length 0.9 over the 17 meters as being anything of substance, particularly when Ms. Fromstein said that the reduction from 85 something was not nickels and dimes, so 0.9 is nickels and dimes too. It's not much over the length, and I'm sure that and I've driven in the area, and I know that there are new builds, and they all look large, at least as large as this, and maybe larger. And I'm sure that Richard Wingle has cited some of these houses when he deals with FSI, because he's probably built half of the new ones. So I would support this application. So do we have a motion?
Sure, Chair, I'm happy to, I'll move a motion. I'll move a motion to approve the amended variances. I don't have them right in front of me, but just hang on a second. The length, yeah, the length is amended from 18.5 meters to 17.9 meters. And the FSI is amended from 0.91 to 0.868.
Yes, that's correct.
And there are no, I don't believe any other conditions, there's no urban forestry condition on this, so, I guess it's that amended, those amended variances, with no conditions.
Do we have a seconder?
I will second that, yeah.
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Nimrod, you're opposed? Okay. Motion passes 3-1. You have your approval, sir. Madam, thank you. Number 31, 61 Wright Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a front one-story addition with a new front porch and a rear two-story addition, a new one-story detached garage will also be constructed in the rear yard. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, 4 form letters in support. Ms. Barkley?
Yes, hello?
Yes. Go ahead,
Good
please.
afternoon. My name is Sarah Barkley. I'm the agent representing the owners today. My address is 686 Warden Avenue, Scarborough. Did you need a full presentation?
I just lost all my stuff. No, I don't think we do. So, do you have anything you want to say to the panel?
Yes, I would just like to note that the FSI that is indicated on the notice does include the basement level as well. So this is just due to the existing condition of a very shallow basement. So the FSI of the main and second floor with the addition is actually 0.72 times density. It's quite a bit smaller than the number that we are requesting just due to that existing condition.
Okay. Panel? We have any, you have a motion or comments?
Were there any speakers, or are we in committee?
No speakers. No speakers,
Okay.
Nimrod. No other speakers.
All right. Well, I'm happy to move forward a motion. I think the variances are minor in nature. The FSI that's proposed has been, it's been indicated that the reason it's that high is because the basement is being included in the FSI. And so I would move approval of the variances with no conditions.
I will second that. And I also want to add that they do have support from both sides of the both sides of the, the property.
Okay, so all in favor? Have your approval. We have to take a break for a moment. I've lost my computer here.
We're taking a break, 5 minutes? Or?
No, I'm okay.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm back. Bertmount Avenue. And the purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a partial third-story addition. With this application, we have we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from planning, and 4 form letters in support. So, Mr. Smith.
Hi Jay, you're unmuted. You may be muted on your end if you just want to unmute.
Mr. Smith, are you with us?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there might be some technical difficulties on his end. So Jay, I'm going to give you a call on the number provided.
To number 3381 Heathdale Road. Purpose of the application to alter the existing 1.5-story detached dwelling by constructing a front 1-story addition and a 2nd-story addition at the southeast corner of the dwelling. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. Mr. Lucasano?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Could we have your name and address for the record, sir?
Sure, it's Enzo Lacasano, 130 Bridgeland Avenue in Toronto.
Okay, I don't think we need your presentation. Panel, do we have a motion? Yes, Nimrod?
Yeah, there's only one variance, and it's really very minor. The proposed addition is quite small, and so I'm happy to move forward a motion to approve with no conditions.
Seconder? Larry? Or Yim, you second it? Okay, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Don't go away.
I'm not going away.
Okay, number 34, 56 Marion Street. Purpose of the application to alter the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear 3rd-story addition with rear balcony, and we only have materials submitted by the applicant. Mr. Lucasano, I think we need your name and your address again for the record for this application.
Sure, it's Enzo Lacasano, and it's 130 Bridgeland Avenue in Toronto.
Okay, so you better give us a brief presentation because there is some opposition.
Sure. What we're doing here is constructing basically 2 dormers at the back. And we've pulled it back so that we would maintain the character of the street. Now, every house pretty much on Marion has a 3rd floor, whether they call it a 3rd floor or 2.5. And what we reviewed was 13 files just on Marion. And out of the 7 of the 13 that were dealing directly with third floors, the FSIs span from 0.7 all the way up to 1.49 in the recent applications. Now, again, most of the variances we feel are very minimal and have very little impact with regards to the height. We're not exceeding the existing height. We're matching the existing peak that's there. The FSI is well within the FSI of the area. And with regards to the total height, the 0.19, that's merely a structural issue that we have with regards to the roof joist rather than roof rafters. So there is a slight height variance because of the flatness of the roof. But we feel that this meets all the 4 tests. It fits very well into the community. It's set back far enough that it would be very small visibility from the streetscape and maintains the character of the street itself. And I would answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Yes, Imran?
Yeah, I just want the applicant to clarify, is the existing FSI 0.84 FSI?
Yes, it is.
And then the size of the addition that's proposed, was that?
0.047.
Yeah. So the actual addition that's being proposed, is it 12 square meters in total?
Again, because there's already a 3rd floor there, all we're really doing is popping up the roof. So we're just gaining the small voided areas that where the knee walls are now. So that's why the FSI looks minimal, because it's really not, we're not gaining the additional floor area. It's really the more usable space behind those knee walls. So the floor area has already been counted for.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, Mr. Locasano, I just want to clarify. I think you told Mr. Salomon that the floor space index that you're proposing is 0.84?
No, what we're proposing is 0.89.
Oh.
The existing is
it's
0.84.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
So the additional space is 12 square meters.
Okay, thank
What
you.
we're gaining from what's there now.
Yeah, okay. So we'll move on to Kia Poom.
Hi there. I just wanted to
So
ask,
can we have,
I wasn't-
Miss Poom, can we have your name and your address for the record, please?
Oh, yes. My name is Kia Poom, 60 Marion.
Okay, so tell us what your concerns are.
I just wanted to know if there was any effect on in the backyard to sunlight or etc. Does it change the sunshine or the shading in the backyards of neighboring houses?
Okay, so that's your only concern?
And then the other, just I don't know if there's what the duration of this work would be, but I'm just wondering what the duration would be, and then what the effect on traffic on the one way, like where will the construction equipment, et cetera, be, and just what the noise levels might be.
All right, so that's the construction aspect is not something that we deal with. So I'm going to
Okay.
ask Mr. Locasano to deal with the shading issue. Mr. Locasano?
Okay.
Because the existing roof, as you can see on the front elevation, that's the same as on the back. So the amount of shading is actually only going to impact the shading on the existing roof areas of the house and not the wall areas, because it's again, the deck at the back is already over an existing sunroom that's there, and the existing house or volume of house is the same. There's no impact at all with regards to additional shading, because it all falls on the roofs of the existing house itself and not the walls.
Okay, thank you. Panel, do we have any comments, any questions, or a motion? Yim? Yes?
No, I have a motion, I don't have a question, and I did do the calculation of the actual increase, it's just very minor, and also they make use of, they just pop up the roof up at the dormers, and I think this is like minor addition, and I will have a motion for approval with no conditions.
All right, Larry seconded. All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you. Can we go back to 32? Is Mr. Smith here? Okay, now. Okay, I found it. Okay, we're going back to 32, 29 Bertmount Avenue. Purpose of the application is to alter the existing 2.5-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a partial third-story addition. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from planning, and support, 4 form letters in support from properties on Bertmount Avenue and Cody Avenue. Mr. Smith.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Jay Smith, 2814 Hollington Crescent, Mississauga.
Yes, okay. So, I don't think we need to hear from you. We're glad you're here. I don't think we need to hear from you because there's no opposition. We're going to take it into committee. Do you have anything you want to say before we go into committee?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Panel, any comments, or do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll kick it up. I just wanted to, I think this is the one where we had a planning staff report recommending refusal. So I wonder, before we go into committee, I think I understand the issue, and I think there's a good answer that, or perspective that the agent might be able to share with us on this one. So I wonder if you think it's a good idea just to go back and ask the agent to respond to planning staff recommendations before we make a decision.
Yeah, I think so. Mr. Smith, do you want to comment on the planning report?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, there is a very good reason. That is, the basement is included in the FSI of the proposal. Planning staff did have concerns. We did remove variance number 2 under a waiver to remove the height variance, so we are left with just the single variance. And we did reduce that as well from 1.57 to 1.55 and reduce the depth of the third floor addition by 2 feet, which was shown in the updated drawings submitted. The basement, from established grade, there's a 5-inch variance, so if we underpin the basement, this would actually go away. Tomorrow I have a project at number 68 Bertmount Avenue with an FSI of 1.32 without the basement, and planning staff has no issues with that project. So I do believe at the 1.15 FSI without the basement, we're falling within recent decisions within the neighborhood that were listed in my cover letter.
You have any
If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
For my part, that's exactly what I was looking for. I think, in all the material, the subject material, that was what's the point. I just wanted to, like, planning staff haven't withdrawn their recommendation. I just wanted to give you a chance to, set that into context for us.
Thank you.
So, Larry, the staff has withdrawn the official recommendation?
No, I don't think so. I hadn't seen it withdrawn, so that's why I wanted to make sure that the agent has an opportunity to kind of speak to that issue, because what he's typically saying is the FSI calculation includes the basement, which, traditionally we have, accepted that the basement isn't really considered as part of the FSI. So, what he's suggesting is the actual FSI is 115, rather than 0.57, which on the surface really did look quite excessive.
So
I did note that the Jace Semi is also signed off and supports the application too.
Yes, that's the thing I want, the staff report is something that I like to, I was a little bit surprised when I saw that, because when I did all the calculation, and it's also they're willing to reduce, they actually, with the main wall height, they're asking for only 19 inches. I'm not too sure that will break the build form policy, that little bit. And if the FSI is including the basement, that again will make the figure a lot larger. I feel a little bit disturbed that they recommend just white out refusal, and this is one of the very rare times that I disagree with the planning report.
Nimrod?
Yeah, and mine was more like a question for us. It wasn't clear to me, was variance number 1 being revised to reduce it down to 1.55, and was variance 2 being eliminated?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Yeah.
So variance number 1, as amended, is to read: the altered semi-detached dwelling will have a floor space index equal to 1.55 times the area of the lot, which equates to 218.57 square meters. And variance number 2 was removed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure, can I just ask a bit of a question? Again, this is just, I don't want to leave this issue of fuzzy understanding of how this process, and it's really about, in some instances, the basement is not included in FSI, and in this instance is, and I think the impact I'm concerned about is we will now have on record approving a 1.55 FSI, which, others in the neighborhood will point to and say, well, he approved 1.55, and that may not be an accurate reflection of how we typically calculate FSI. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I wouldn't mind just a little bit of clarification about this.
Well, I don't.
Who are you asking me?
I'm asking staff, actually. I was asking, maybe I can get, or Chair, if you have some insight on this.
Well, I know that basements, in some instances, because portions of them are above a certain level above grade, that they're included, and I don't know how to make the distinction. And I agree with you that when people come in and say, well, this one was approved at 1.57 FSI, that we're not comparing we're not necessarily comparing apples to apples. So it creates a problem, but I think we've got to say, we're not bound by precedent. So I think.
No, I get that.
But
and
it's
I don't
hard.
want to belabor, but I'm just looking at the Google Street View of this property, and I get the point. In some cases, the basement is 3/4 above grade, and that is a very different than, I think in this case, where I'm looking at it, and it doesn't appear that the basement is very above grade at all. So I don't know if we're gonna resolve it here today, but I just wanted to make a note of it, that it's just a little bit fuzzy in this instance.
Yeah, but I think we always have to be careful about properties that, other properties that are cited as precedents. For example, 2 or 3 years ago, we had an application in which a disabled person was asking for a property without a basement, and the FSI was very high, and my colleagues on the panel didn't want to approve it because the FSI was so high. And I said, but this person is disabled. They said, yes, but how are we going to know when somebody comes in and cites the FSI? And but I just saw a case from the local, I can't remember the name, but the appeal body that we go to, TLAB, in which they said, yeah, this person, this has a greater FSI than normal properties, but this person is disabled. But in the TLAB decision, you have a decision, and you have a notation that there's a disabled person, and that's why they're granting it. In our decisions, we don't always articulate the reasons why some of these things happened. If we could say 1.57 because basements included, or two because this person's disabled, it would be fine, but we don't usually do that.
Yeah, but we have a chance to speak in public, and then I think that our views are being heard in that sense, and I think every site is its own specific situation. We cannot take it as precedent.
Yeah, it's hard when somebody cites FSI at some other location when they're trying to support their FSI. We don't always know how the FSI was arrived at, so we probably have to be careful.
I agree, but it's not ideal way we know it.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I can't help you, Larry.
On the rare occasion, Don, when you can't.
Yeah. Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'm happy to move a motion, although I'll admit let me go back to the variances. So I'll move a motion to approve the application with variance number 1 modified to read 1.55 here. I didn't catch the meters squared.
It would be 218.57 square meters.
Great, Sabrina. And is variance number 2 still in play, or was that removed?
Variance number 2 was deleted.
Deleted. Okay, just the one variance then, as amended.
Okay, seconder?
And, no other conditions.
Yeah. Seconder? Nimrod? All in favor? Have your approval? Thank you. Number 35, 700 Adelaide Street West. Purpose of this application is to convert the existing 2-story, 2-unit townhouse into a 3-unit dwelling by constructing a new front basement walkout, a new front porch, and converting the basement into a secondary suite. With this, we have material submitted by the applicant, email correspondence from transportation, and 6 form letters in support. Mr. Tahiri?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the committee staff. I'm Frank Tahiri from 6 Design Architects, address 7191 Young Street, Unit 808. I'm representing the applicant in this case.
Okay, so I don't believe we need a presentation. Do you have anything you want to say to the panel before we go into committee?
Yes, before we go into that, I just want to mention that this used to be a shelter rehab house rented by the city, and it was causing a lot of problems for the neighbors. So the owner decided to actually improve the property, take the tenants out because they were causing a lot of problem in the neighborhood. When we were talking to the neighbors, everybody was concerned about that. So he's trying to improve the type of tenants that are coming into here. He's trying to improve it towards more educated, more working class, which is more in line with the rest of the street. That's why we are proposing this conversion.
So are you
And also to add to that, there's an existing front porch. So we are not putting in a new porch. There's an existing porch which we are replacing with a smaller porch and a walkout.
Okay, but this property's right on the house is right on the property line because there's no front yard landscaping?
Oh, no. That's a little bit confusing. So, zoom in. If you can open the survey, yeah. So if you can see, there is a little bit of front yard that is still remaining, which is in line with the rest of the neighborhood. And the porch that we are proposing is actually replacing that existing porch that you see on the survey.
Okay, right. Okay, panel, any questions? Okay, do we have comments or a motion?
I do have comments. I do have concerns with the proposal. In my mind, it's exactly what the applicant said. He called it a conversion. And in my view, this is a conversion of a townhouse to a 3-unit building. It becomes a multi-unit building as opposed to a townhouse. And so I do have concerns that what is being proposed is not minor in nature.
Can you explain that? I don't understand why you think that it's not minor.
Yeah, I guess there's 2 variances that deal with this second suite condition. It would be 2 second suites plus the main unit. So one of the variances is that there will be 2 secondary suites, and the zoning allows maximum of 1 secondary suite. And then the second variance dealing with this is increasing the amount of the interior floor area to more than 45%. So I think it's clear the intent of the zoning was that for a townhouse, there'd be a maximum of 1 secondary suite.
Actually, I can a little bit elaborate on that if you allow me.
I'm sorry, are we in committee or are we, I'm confused.
Well, we're in committee, but
okay.
I think, I mean, I don't understand quite why this is not minor. I'm with Yim, so perhaps we can hear from the applicant just to tell us why it's a minor variation.
For sure. Basically, if you look at the existing floor plans of this building, we are not adding anything to this building in terms of size. There's a 1-story addition at the back of this building, which is extended in the basement as well. And all we are trying to do is we're using that space, which is existing. And because of the existing condition, the square footage goes above the 45% allowance. It's not that we are adding anything, it's the existing condition of how this building is oriented. And also considering the housing shortage in Toronto, I believe this is actually helping the neighborhood in terms of creating more affordable housing for that specific area.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Yim?
Yes, I do have a question to the applicant. Okay, I just try to understand what is existing now or before, and then what we are converting. When you say that it was used as a rehab facility, was it just something like a rooming
It was a
house
shelter.
or
It used to be a shelter.
a shelter? It's like a rooming house or
Exactly, rooming house. It used to be a rooming house, a shelter that was causing a lot of problems for the
I understand. I just want to know it is whether it is improvement or whether it is just keeping more or less residential, multi-unit residential.
Yeah, it used to be a rooming shelter, basically, and we're trying to improve it and create proper units that can actually be rented to working class.
And before it was like a staff facility, or people just like that is divided in separate
Rooms. It was different rooms being rented out, and there was multiple fights happening in this building. All the neighbors were concerned about this and concerned about the type of tenants that are coming to the neighborhood. And once we explained to them what's happening with the building, everybody supported. The two neighbors to the side supported. Everybody at the front of the house supported, and nobody was actually concerned about this. They were actually happy that we are creating this improvement.
So
that's
was
the point I try to get. This is like a welcome change for the immediate neighborhood. Right?
Exactly.
So was this shelter run by the city or was it private?
I believe it was run by the city.
Okay. Larry?
I was going to ask the same question, Chair, but I'll follow up that with just looking at the plan. So basically, you're planning to convert it into 3 units, 1 unit in the basement, 1 on the first floor, 1 on the second floor. Is that basically correct?
That's correct. It already has a permit for 1 unit in main floor and basement and 1 unit in second floor. However, the area in the basement is useless, and it's a big recreation room that no tenant is interested in. So it's kind of going to be left empty if it's a big unit with that size, considering the type of neighborhood that we are working in.
So you would be fixing up or your client would be fixing up the basement, install a kitchen, bathroom, etc.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, panel, any further questions, comments, or do we have a motion?
I'll just throw in, I know Nimrod was uncomfortable. I just want to say that I'm not uncomfortable with this one. I think it is a desirable adaptive reuse of the facility. In the fact that it was a publicly supported probably halfway house or rooming house, and that funding will have been withdrawn and hopefully reallocated somewhere else, because this is a necessary and needed kind of facility. But in the absence of that, this seems like an appropriate reuse in that area, providing some additional rental accommodation in an area adjacent to the downtown area. So I think I could support it.
Yeah. And also, I want to add that that's why I was asking, or the question is the change from the previous use. And I think it's a good change, welcomed by the neighbors, and also that it's a well-serviced area, it's a very dense downtown area. And the other thing is, I think is after you shuffle some figures like some rooms into apartments, then maybe the figure technically is increased in the secondary suite. Before it was just rooming house, was not like there's any technical definition of difference, right? It's only residential use. So I think it's a technical thing. So I'm also in support of the application.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Okay, so I will move for approval, and I do not see any conditions, there's no conditions.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Larry? All in favor? Okay, Nimrod, you're opposed? Motion passes 3-1. Number 36, 140, the Esplanade. Purpose of the application is to alter the parking level 1 of the existing mixed-use building by converting 4 parking spaces into 2 accessible parking spaces. Okay. Okay. Sabrina, I've lost the sheet with the materials. Oh, wait a minute. I have it.
You have it?
Okay. When they're printed on both sides, I sometimes throw it away too soon. All right, we have material submitted by the applicant in opposition from someone with no address provided. So, Rob Huot?
Good afternoon, this is Rob Hewitt. I'm with Susan Spiegel Architect, representing the agent, the client on this file.
Okay, I don't think we need a presentation by you. Okay, the panel, do you have any questions? Okay, so,
No, I don't have any question, except I was just a little bit surprised there's actually a opposition, and I thought that it's always good to increase the accessibility in any situation. So I will move for approve. I will think maybe there's some misunderstanding of what's going to be done by the opposition. Yeah.
but there is no opposition today, Jim, just a letter in opposition.
Just the letter, yeah. I was just surprised that even that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I will move for approval with no conditions.
All right, do we have a seconder? Nimrod, thank you. All in favor? You have your approval. Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay. Number 37. Lankin Boulevard. Purposes of this application to permit the existing rear ground floor deck and in-ground swimming pool. And to install a south side parking space. And with this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, a report from planning, and 5 form letters in support. So we have Mr. Spagnolo.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Let me just see if there's any opposition. No opposition. So, but you do have a lot of variances. Could you just give us a very brief presentation?
Yes, for sure. My name is Franco Spagnolo of Studio Spagnolo Inc., 911 Chippenham Drive, Mississauga. The proposal is to legalize and maintain the existing rear yard pool and uncovered deck. We've worked closely with city planning. They had one minor concern regarding the rear soft landscaping. And in order to remedy this, what we did is we worked with them and they suggested that we provide some additional front yard landscaping. And the owners agreed, and the drawings were updated and resubmitted and dated October 16th, so I believe that you have that. Regarding the, we'll start off with the overall coverage. So the maximum coverage is 35%, and the proposed is 45.8%. One important note here is that the existing dwelling is 35.48%, which is not changing. It will remain. The additional 9.59% is for the uncovered deck at the rear, which obviously has less impact because it's not enclosed or covered. You can see in my planning rationale on page 3 that I have some examples of the neighboring coverages that were approved both for overall and for maximum dwelling, and we fall right within the range between 41 to 46.82 for overall coverage, and the maximum dwelling at between 35 and 39.8. So that being said, I don't think this will create any new precedent within the area. Next would be the rear yard soft landscaping. Minimum is 50% and provided is 43.5. We believe it's minor and only driven by the interlocking around the pool. No accessory structures such as gazebos or cabanas or sheds are proposed, so we don't believe that there'll be no concerns about shadowing or massing in the rear yard. Soft landscaping is being maintained on the north, south, and west sides to allow for proper drainage and water runoff without impacting any neighbors. There was an existing rear yard deck as part of a 2006 permit that was slightly smaller than the existing. It was actually in poor condition, and the north side property line, the minimum is 0.9, but under the 2006 permit, it was allowed to be 0.27 and aligned with the house. This deck is actually a little bit further away, along with the steps as well. That's another variance at 0.36 meters. The steps are actually reconstructed, again, in the same proximate location as the previous set of stairs that were approved. One important note is that the rear yard setback of 8.86 meters exceeds the minimum of 8.38. And the other variance would be the setbacks to the pool, which is the water's edge. Minimum is 1.2 and provided is 1 meter and 0.93 on the north side. We feel that this is more than sufficient for access or for any required maintenance, and again, for proper drainage around the property, the soft landscaping will be maintained. Regarding the parking space is behind the front wall. It is, the one variance for that is the width, 2.9, and the proposed is 2.08. One important item here is that there is an additional 0.3 meters of a right-of-way that the owner is allowed to access, not park, but access in regards to walking by, opening the vehicle door. And if you look on pages 4 and 5 of my planning rationale, we've actually taken some pictures, and between the parked car and the south wall, there's approximately 0.48 meters. So there is no encroachment. The following page as well. There is no encroachment with the car onto neighboring property. That would be the room to open up the door and access. So that being said, we believe that these variances are minor. We have letters of support from the immediate neighbors on the north and south, along with on the east side, which is across the street. And we don't feel that this will create any precedent within the neighborhood.
Yeah, I just want to, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I wonder if you can make a note that we should be amending the purpose, and that's why I had trouble reading it. It should read, I believe, to legalize and maintain the existing rear ground floor deck.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll just double check, but typically we use that terminology when there's an order to comply on the file, whereas in this instance, we've used to permit the existing rear ground floor deck and in-ground swimming pool.
Okay, I didn't appreciate that there was a distinction. I've never sort of been told there was that kind of distinction. Okay, so I pointed it out, so you can check and you put in what you consider the right thing to do.
Sure.
Okay, so, yeah, is there anything, any questions, panel? Okay, Larry, I just wanted to point out to you, this is another instance of where something is included in the FSI that might not, that increases the FSI. This is an uncovered deck, but it increases it is included in the FSI.
Yeah, no, it's lifelong learning, Don. You learn something new every day.
Yep. Okay, all right, so do we have any questions or do we have a motion?
I'm happy to carry on with that thought, Don. I'm happy to move a motion to move. I was actually quite comfortable. When you saw this, I thought, a little deck and a legal swimming pool, but I was satisfied with the agent's explanation. I think it makes sense, and it's good that they're coming forward to ensure that these two things are go. So I'm happy to move a motion to approve, subject to planning conditions regarding the landscaping included in the memo of October the 20th.
Yeah, do we have a seconder? Yim, all in favor? You have your approval, sir, thank you. Number 38. Okay, 145 Varsity Road. This is to obtain consent to sever the property into 3 undersized residential lot. Part 1 with a lot frontage of 5.79 meters along Varsity Road and an area of 240 square meters, a 2-story detached dwelling with an attached single-car garage, a walkout basement, a front porch, and a rooftop terrace will be constructed requiring variances. Part 3 has a lot frontage of 6.36 meters along Varsity Road and an area of 240.8 square meters, a 2-story detached dwelling with an attached single-car garage, a walkout basement, a front porch, and a rooftop terrace will be constructed requiring variances to the zoning bylaw. And Part 2 will have a lot frontage of 9.15 meters along Juliana Court and an area of 321.9 square meters, a 2-story detached dwelling with an attached single-car garage, a walkout basement, and a front porch will be constructed requiring variances. Yes, we have material submitted by the applicant, reports from engineering, urban forestry, and planning, and correspondence and concern from 2 Juliana Court. Okay. Mr. Demzak?
Good afternoon, members of the committee.
Yes, your name and your address for the record, please.
Thank you. Paul Demchek with Pretori Management. Address is 655 Ann Land Street.
Okay, would you go ahead, because we do have some opposition?
Yes. So as discussed, the purpose of the application is to sever the property to create 2 new residential lots and 1 retained lot. The subject property is obviously occupied by an existing 2-story or 1 detached dwelling, and it is in a regular shaped corner lot, essentially in an L shape in terms of the property fabric. I did, and I do recognize, obviously, we have a report from planning staff that do not support or does not support the proposed application. I would suggest before the committee we have had quite extensive and, at least in my opinion, some pretty good dialogue with city planning on the file, and a respectful disagreement on the lot frontage, proposed lot frontage and lot fabric. I will note that planning staff did not indicate any particular concerns with the proposed built forms associated with each of the proposed lots, and they did focus their comments on the proposed lot frontages and lot areas. In discussion with city planning, I do believe that the main issue is the proposed corner lot, which does show a slight frontage under 6 meters. And I believe that was, at least from my opinion, that was the crux of the issue in terms of potentially proposing one of the lots, which is just under 6 meters. I would respectfully suggest that the committee consider some of the findings, obviously, in my planning report, as well as the impact of the streetscape and proposed dwelling in terms of the frontage from a streetscape perspective. And I'll just highlight a few quick notes from that. So as part of the lot frontage analysis that we had completed in our submissions and as associated with the planning justification report, we did note that in terms of the lot areas, a total of 109 lots in this immediate area, including on Varsity and Juliana Court, were examined, with 55 of the 109 lots with a lot area in the range of 200 to 300 square meters, which is consistent with our proposed application. And from a lot frontage perspective, and within the immediate vicinity, 46 of those lots were in a lot frontage with a range of between 6 and 8 meters. In response in our discussions with city planning, we did note that when you look at the corner lot from a streetscape perspective, it does have a pinch point right at the corner along Varsity Road, and then it widens out as it goes towards the rear of the property. Just for clarity purposes, a 6 meter frontage would be located 1.6 meters in from the property line, and at where the front porch is located, the width of the lot at that portion is roughly 6.46 meters. So I would suggest to the committee that although it is slightly under the 6 meter frontage right at its pitch point at the quarter, I would suggest that it does meet the intent of the lot fabric, just from a lot fabric perspective, and complies with the immediate neighborhood. I'm happy to dive in further in terms of any specific questions, but I would suggest before the committee that the consent application does meet the requirements stipulated by the City of Toronto official plan, and from a zoning perspective, I would suggest that the applications before you do meet the forecast in the Planning Act, and the proposed development does fit in with the existing streetscape in the context of the neighborhood. I'm before the committee and would be happy to answer and assist with any questions. Thank you.
Any questions, panel? Yes, Nimrod?
Yeah, so just on that lot study that you had produced, I think it showed there were either about 108 lots in total that were in that lot study, but it indicates that only 4 of those 108 lots had a lot frontage less than 7 meters. And you're proposing 2 lots that would have a frontage less than 7 meters. So how does that fit with the character based on the lot study that you produced?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So as part of our analysis, when we looked at what some of the existing lot frontages are, and I'll focus some of my discussion on the immediate context right across the site from my client's property along Varsity Road. A number of those lots, to your point, do range between the 6 and 8 meter frontages. So the 2 lots that we are proposing are under 7 meters in frontage. At the street, right at the dwelling frontage where you visualize the properties, they are roughly just under 6.5 meters of frontage, which is, from my perspective, it is within an acceptable limit of what is experienced right within the immediate context of the neighborhood. And I would suggest that we have had, again, in our discussions with planning, I think, to be candid, I don't believe that all planning staff members who were reviewing the file were in full agreement on that, and perhaps some were, but we did not get, obviously, a supportive recommendation for this file.
Okay. Simone Harris?
Through you, Mr. Chair, attempts were made to contact Simone Harris, and we were not able to reach them.
Oh.
But we have
Everybody or just the
No,
Harris?
Just Harris. We have the next 2 speakers on the line.
Paul Short?
Hi there, it's Paul Short at 2 Juliana Court.
Yes, we have your concerns or your interest.
You talked earlier with 56 Marion, so I'm wondering if the first 3 are potentially related more to construction, but I don't know if they relate to what you guys are discussing here. So basically, at the southwest corner of Juliana and Varsity, there's a power pole that there are lines that run across from it to my house, which is literally right across where the construction would occur. There's not only the power, but also Rogers cable line. I guess my concern is how will that get mitigated? And I should note for the record, I'm all for this proposal. I think it's great that you're able to add 3 houses, particularly in terms of the housing crisis that we're currently in. And the 4th one would be a sidewalk. Would there be an additional sidewalk on Juliana for, I guess, the one that would face Juliana?
Okay, well, we'll have to let Mr. Demchuk answer those. So we'll just move on and we'll come back to Mr. Demchuk and he can answer your questions. Okay, Cindy Hawk and Pablo Lorca.
No comments, just here to listen.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Demchuk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just on the hydro pole. So we have noted that in discussions with my client and the project architect. If it is an issue that we need to work with Toronto Hydro to potentially relocate the pole, that would be obviously borne by the cost of my client. And as far as the sidewalk goes, I'm not aware of any sidewalk requirements by the city. We have not received any indication that they wanted us to install one. So I don't believe that would occur.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's go on to committee. Panel, any comments? Yes, Yim?
Yeah, I can start with some comment. Thank you for the presentation. I think the material is very well written, and although did not get the planning staff to agree to everything, but I think it's a good presentation. And when I look at it, it's more like direct. When I look at the lot analysis, is that these 2 smaller lots, although they say undersized, but it is almost making it this so-called the small lot in that area. But also they have the disadvantage of being a pie shape. So in reality, the property line is sticking out. The frontage you do not really see, but as the applicant was saying, when you move up to where the house is, it's comfortable. I think that it fits, and I I don't have problem with the servants in this case.
Okay. Any other comment? So, yes, Larry?
I looked at a lot, and each way I looked at it, even before reading planning staff report, you know, to boil it down from all the things that I was thinking of, it just struck me that in this instance, given the unique shape of lot, that it was trying to shoehorn too much into too little space. It just didn't seem to me that the way the houses were configured, and the size of the lot and where the backyard bends onto the side of the other house, and there is a property adjacent to it that is also enacted. I just didn't think, frankly, that I think it's too much, in my view, it's too much house on too little land. So that's my view.
All right, Nimrod?
Yeah, I would agree with Larry's comments. I think they're trying to create too many lots into this particular land area.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought, but Yim, perhaps give us a little more information, because I didn't,
No, I was just thinking in terms of geography of the lot. In terms of the area is not that much smaller, but the frontage that is more like everybody is just the frontage is under. But I thought that they have the disadvantage because of this pie shape. So you got a sort of getting this smaller in front, but actually the houses are set back, and I thought that the distance between them is not unusual, given that there's a lot of houses have less than a couple of feet apart. So I thought that it is a good intensification, maybe you can call that, but I do not think that it is that grossly away from the small lots. And you look at the larger area, there are a lot of small lots in from the aerial view, and I see that a lot of small houses, smaller lots in the area. That's why I think it's good.
so how does the lot area, I thought the lot areas were still smaller than the other lots in the area.
Yeah, but he said that it's within the 200 and 300 square meter that he's done analysis, and then he said that it's almost like 40 lots in actually he said that the average lot area is about 200 to 300 square meters. So his reference is falling into that, right?
You know, I guess I looked at his lot study, and I thought the lot study was very persuasive. It showed only 4 lots having a lot frontage less than 7 meters out of 108 lots. And in terms of the lot area, only 25 lots had a lot frontage less than 250 square meters. And so the character of the area based on the lot study is of larger lot areas and of larger lot frontages. That's what I got out of that.
Yeah, well, sometimes when you just deal with numbers, it doesn't tell you the whole story. I think the way Yim is looking at it is reasonable. I'm not saying I support it, but I think what she's saying sounds reasonable, and that if you put a house on a lot like that with a smaller frontage, but put the house a little further back because it's pie-shaped, that the distances between the houses would not be out of character with the area. Is that what you're saying, Yim?
Besides, yeah, that's what I said, and I'm not trying to say that they're trying to hit the average of their lot analysis. In the beginning, I recognize that they actually will be the lower end, the smaller lots of the whole analysis, but they're not completely off the chart.
Yeah.
I thought they're very close to the smaller lots in the area.
Okay, I think that's what Mr. Dimscack was saying as well, that we're pushing them back a little bit, so won't be out of character. Okay, so somebody make a motion, and then we'll see how it falls out.
Sure, I'm happy to do it, and we'll see how the vote falls, but, again, for the reasons that I spoke earlier, I totally get that in certain parts of the city, we have approved this kind of development, but just, I think the way that the new houses are configured, it just is too, it just doesn't work for the shape of the lot. So I'm gonna propose that we refuse this application.
Okay.
We refuse this application.
Nimrod, are you seconding that motion? Okay. All in favor of the motion? Yim, you're opposing the motion? Yeah, okay. The motion, the application is refused 3-1. Number 39. (116) Pape Avenue. The purpose of this application is to obtain consent to sever the existing residential lot into 2 residential lots and to create easements and right-of-ways. Part 2 and 4, the lot has a frontage of 6.4 meters from Pape Avenue, an area of 222.5 square meters, a new 3-story detached dwelling with rear ground floor and 3rd floor decks, as well as a rear semi-detached garage will be constructed requiring variances to the zoning bylaw. Part 4 will be subject to an easement right-of-way in favor of parts 5 and 7 for the purpose of pedestrian access. Parts 5 and 7, the lot has a frontage of 6.4 meters from Pape Avenue and an area of 222.5 square meters, a new 3-story detached dwelling with rear ground floor and 3rd floor decks, as well as a rear semi-detached garage will be constructed requiring variances to the zoning bylaw. Easements, rights of way, Part 5. Part 5 will be subject to an easement right of way in favor of Parts 2 and 4 for the purpose of pedestrian access. Mr. Brander.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Adam Brander. My address is 49 Bolton Avenue in Toronto, and I'm the agent and the architect for the proposal at 116 Pape Avenue.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, what is the required frontage of the lot and the required square footage or square meters?
There's no variance triggered for the lot frontage. However, we noted that in looking at the survey, we found that even after the proposed severance, we're at approximately 1.5 times the frontage of the adjacent 8 lots. So we didn't examine that any further.
Okay, thank you. All right, panel, do you have any questions of Mr. Brander? Comments? Yes, Larry?
Yeah, maybe the agent can take us a little bit of the story around forest comments and the tree in particular. I think at the end of the day, you've satisfied these concerns, but I'm not entirely sure because planning has now gotten involved. Maybe you could help us understand, that's certainly some of the opposition that I read about the trees. So maybe you can help us better understand what's happened and where you're at now.
Yes, of course. Through you, Mr. Chair. This application was subject to pre-circulation back in the spring and early summer. Part of that included a arborist report, and the understanding that came back was there was no comments from forestry. There were initial comments from planning that were satisfied, as well as engineering construction services for a lane widening and a road widening in the front of the lot that were adhered to. And then kind of to our surprise, a couple days in advance of the hearing, we got notice of forestry concerns, mainly condition number 5, of recommending refusal. So we immediately worked with them and removed the rear garages from the application to their satisfaction while maintaining surface parking spaces. And this was to their satisfaction on not recommending refusal on the application anymore. And the condition would be that the one healthy tree in the rear yard would remain, while the others that are in poor to fair condition in kind of poor locations would be removed and replaced with 10 replacement trees as a part of urban forestry conditions. And there was also 2 boulevard trees that were included in the application at the front of the property earlier in the pre-circulation time span of this project.
Thank you. So the upshot is you satisfied both urban forestry and planning with the current proposal, have you?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct. And the planning report that was issued yesterday was nothing relating to forestry. It was just an omission on their behalf of indicating privacy screening on the 3rd floor deck, and that was the extent of that.
So you said you're removing garage portion as well, or did I hear that?
Yes, the garage portion is removed, and that was updated on the drawings, and the variances updated to reflect. So there's no longer a rear yard landscaping variance for either proposed lot.
And there were some concerns from residents about the laneway, the access to through the laneway because of the garage. So would removal of the garage satisfy some of the concern as well?
Kind of unrelated. The setback indicated is actually from the post-conveyance condition. So after meeting with neighbors and explaining that condition, that it's actually an increase of a lane widening of 0.98 meters, they were satisfied and no longer opposed and submitted a letter to the application technician to that effect.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we go any further, I neglected to read into the record the material in the file and including the supplemental material. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, rather than me reading it in, could you just include it in the record?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. You saved my life because it's long. Okay, so do we have some comment, or do we have a motion? I think we can deal with them all at the same time. Yes, Yim?
Oh, I just want to make sure, are they deleting variance 3 on the 39B and C? The landscape variance, and 3 and 4, I don't, they're deleting something. When I look at the zoning certificate, it's with the the rear yard soft landscaping, did they mention that it's going to be deleted? This is for part 5 and 7. In the zoning particular, it's hard to transcribe back to the actual variances because they lump the whole thing together, I think. And I just do not know.
Through you, Mr. Chair, could we ask the agent to go through what the modifications would be?
Yes.
Yes.
That would be great, yes.
Yes, Mr. Brander, could you
Yes.
just go through the variance for us, starting with, I guess it's 39B?
Yeah, just one moment. So in regards to 116B Pape Avenue, there's a document on the application information center that was updated. Variance 1 remains for floor space index. Variance 2 remains for permitted main wall height, and variance 5 remains. So 3 and 4, 4 being the original variance for the initially proposed slightly larger than 40 square meter rear yard ancillary building, and number 3 being also removed in agreement with urban forestry, such that no rear yard soft landscaping variance would be required to accommodate one service parking. And it's the same mirrored removals for 116 Pape Avenue as well.
So 39C?
Through your chair, the numbers, 39C, the numbering is different. I think it's variance 4 and 5.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, thank you, that's correct.
So C is 4 and 5 that are removed. Okay, that's fine. So, Yim, are we in a position that someone could make a motion now?
Yeah, I can put my comment, and I have no problem with the proposal, especially they have resolved the, because when I look at all the opposition, the main points is about those 5 trees, and everybody is upset about removing them. It seems that they have resolved that issue with urban forestry and also planning, and I do not have any issue on that. And then I can move for approval with the amended variances. First of all, I approve for the consent to server 39A, and approve of 39B and C with the amended variances, and forestry F2 and 3 apply to both, or just the servant? I need help here.
Yeah, engineering, first of all, with respect to the severance, we need the usual engineering conditions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the variances, you recommend approval subject to the amendments and subject to forestry conditions F2 and 3?
Yes. That sounds right, yeah.
Okay.
And were there also community planning conditions?
Oh, yes.
I think it might be. Yeah, right.
Yes. That's, yeah, you would like to include that extra condition too. For both properties, Dewborne?
I think in the memo it says 116B.
160B. Yes, that's right. Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to confirm.
No, 68, 168.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is a motion on the table. If you want to use the condition from community planning. Perhaps you can just state the October 26th memo from community planning and the October 26th memo from urban forestry, which lists out the conditions.
Yeah, because I had a note about the urban forestry conditions for October 26th. I'm not sure that's F2 and 3. So, but I think you're right. It would be better just to say the urban forestry conditions, October 26th, and the
Community planning.
Mm-hmm. Is there a date for that?
October the 26th as well.
Okay. All right. Is that okay?
So, yeah, that's my motion.
Okay. We have a seconder. Nimrod, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you. Number 4700 Bay Street.
Through you, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can we take a 2-minute break to switch over the YouTube stream?
Okay. We have to stop for 2 minutes to switch YouTube.
For anyone listening or watching on YouTube, we'll be switching over to the PM Part 2.